Hi everyone, my name is Tracy Williamson and I'm one of the MLTI 2.0 ambassadors for the 2022 through 2024 school years, and this is Digital Storytelling, part of the MLTI 2.0 2023 Spring Video Series, Share Your Story. To get things started, let's talk a little bit about visual literacy. According to visualliteracy.org, visual literacy is exploring how we see and interpret images, how we use visuals to convey meaning, and what it means to be literate in a digital age. Our students see and hear the world around them in a way that we cannot comprehend. They have lived their entire lives with technology and media, and it's shaped their thinking in a new way that we still do not fully understand. Our 21st century world is saturated with imagery and sounds. The creators of media understand the nuances of color, design, combinations of sound and imagery that subconsciously affect the viewer and listener. It is important that we, as viewers and listeners, also understand the media we consume and the impacts of all the elements. We need to be able to decipher what is real or fabricated, why we feel a certain way when we see or hear something, and how we can also create the same effect through digital media ourselves. In 2012, George Lucas, film director of Star Wars fame, spoke with Edutopia on the importance of teaching visual literacy skills. He points out that media arts are as equally important as reading and writing in 21st century communication skills that students need. The Toledo Museum of Art has a great resource on visual literacy that includes a tiered process for seeing and interpreting imagery similar to Bloom's taxonomy.
So what is visual literacy? Well, art museums can teach a lot about it because art is a language. It's a form of communication. So to be visually literate, you've got to know the alphabet and the vocabulary and the grammar of seeing. Little children, we're told, from the first day they have on the planet up to the age of 5, take in more information than at any other time in their lives. They're truly sentient beings taking in information with all their human senses all the time. Everything we see is an image. There really isn't a difference between text and image because a text is an image and an image is a text. So we have to learn how to read images through the process of vision. Now we know that today we live in a media-saturated age, an image-saturated age, where we're taking in images all the time, and we need to broaden what it means to be literate, to read images rather than text as image. So it's more than reading and writing, it's reading the visual world. A visually literate person is, simply put, able to read and write visual language. Visual literacy is a process of sending and receiving images. They make messages. We can construct meaning from them. And then we can combine all the different literacies that we have to read our multimedia world. Visual literacy is the ability to construct meaning from images. So it's not actually a skill, it uses skills as a toolbox. It's a form of critical thinking that enhances your intellectual capacity. It helps you to interpret the content and the meaning of images, to examine their social impact, to think about them from the point of view of, well, what was intended, what was their purpose, who owns them, who are they being sent to, and helping you to visualize the process of visualization and human imagination. Visual literacy helps you to communicate visually, to read and write images, to read and understand them, to make sense of them, to become aware of judgments about them, whether they're accurate, are they valid, what are they worth, what value do they have. So what does this mean? People from Toledo, Ohio will know this as the peristyle theatre of the Toledo Museum of Art. But it's certainly grand. It's made to impress. It's powerful. It's got lots of seats. It's very grand. It's a place that inspires awe and imagination in every young person that sees it, because we know to read it is to feel special and to feel inspired. Today, our education system emphasizes textual literacy, those ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, the digits and letters. And of course, rightly so also, digital communication, the tools of our digital revolution. But we neglect sensory literacy, those human senses as core curriculum. So, textual literacy and computer literacy are the core of the STEM system, as we call it. Some people want to put the A in STEM, the arts in STEM, the science, technology, engineering and math. But it's much more than that. We need to put the entire human senses into textual and computer literacy. And the dominant sense, the prominent sense, is the visual sense. Visual literacy is the key sensory literacy. We have to teach it because since we became erect human beings standing up, we moved away from when we were closer to primates nearer to the ground and used taste and smell. And now we dominantly use hearing, but mainly we use our sight. And we need to train ourselves how to see. There have been only 3 communications revolutions of grand scale in human history. So to be living one is indeed confusing. It's a very exciting time to be alive, but we're trying to absorb a revolution. The first communications revolution was 5,000 years ago in the Sumerian Empire, when they invented cuneiform writing. And it took a whole 4,500 years to get to the next great revolution, the printed book revolution, the Gutenberg revolution as it's called, of the 15th century in Europe. And so we learned our ABCs and our 1, 2, 3s, and we moved forward only 500 years this time to the third great revolution, which is the digital revolution of our time. All students who graduated in 2013 have had the internet since the day they were born. It went live on Christmas Day in 1991. So we need to continue to teach the human senses, to understand that little child before the age of 5 is the adult that they will become. And the human senses being so important, we need to understand vision. That up to 90% of all the information we take in from the world, we take in with our eyes. It becomes that great memory bank of images that informs the way that we see the world. Now, the optic nerve has 1 million nerve fibers. It has 30% of the entire brain cortex, and that's so much more than any other human sense. But we understand so much more about it now because of brain science, and all that cognitive neuroscience has taught us through the digital revolution. The key message is that we have to be more visually literate, and we need to train people how to see.
So what does this all mean, and how can you start teaching visual and media literacy skills to your students? Digital storytelling is a great way to help students practice using imagery to convey meaning and add emotion through sounds. Digital storytelling is taking short stories, poems, or ideas and enhancing them digitally with music, sound effects, and visual art like photos, video, or animation. A great example of digital storytelling is found in the movie Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. At one point in the story, Hermione is reading the story of the 3 brothers aloud. Rather than focus on her reading, the director chose to animate the story as she's reading, while adding sound effects and music to really enhance the feel of the story, which, as you'll see here, is rather dark. As you watch, listen for the subtle music and sound effects that are barely noticeable, yet greatly impact the storytelling.
There were once 3 brothers who were traveling along a lonely, winding road at twilight. In time, the brothers reached a river too treacherous to pass. But being learned in the magical arts, the 3 brothers simply waved their wands and made a bridge. Before they could cross, however, they found their path blocked by a hooded figure. It was Death, and he felt cheated. Cheated because travelers would normally drown in the river, but Death was cunning. He pretended to congratulate the 3 brothers on their magic and said that each had earned a prize for having been clever enough to evade him. The oldest asked for a wand more powerful than any in existence, so Death fashioned him one from an elder tree that stood nearby. The second brother decided he wanted to humiliate Death even further and asked for the power to recall loved ones from the grave. So Death plucked a stone from the river and offered it to him. Finally, Death turned to the third brother. a humble man, he asked for something that would allow him to go forth from that place without being followed by death. And so it was that Death reluctantly handed over his own cloak of invisibility. The first brother travelled to a distant village, where with the Elder Wand in hand, he killed a wizard with whom he had once quarrelled. Drunk with the power that the Elder Wand had given him, he bragged of his invincibility. But that night, another wizard stole the wand and slit the brother's throat for good measure. And so Death took the first brother for his own. The second brother journeyed to his home, where he took the stone and turned it thrice in hand. To his delight, the girl he had once hoped to marry before her untimely death appeared before him. Yet soon she turned sad and cold, for she did not belong in the mortal world. Driven mad with hopeless longing, the second brother killed himself so as to join her. And so Death took the second brother. As for the third brother, Death searched for many years but was never able to find him. Only when he attained a great age did the youngest brother shed the cloak of invisibility and give it to his son. He then greeted Death as an old friend and went with him gladly, departing this life as equals.
The next, more light-hearted example is the digital storytelling of The Three Little Pigs. This example shows imagery from the book, enhanced with animations, music, sound effects, and a variety of character voices. Again, pay close attention to the types of music, how it changes, and how the sound effects and voices enhance the story.
The Three Little Pigs. Illustrated by Giuseppe De Lerna. Written and retold by Claire Lloyd. On the edge of a beautiful forest lived a mommy pig, a daddy pig, and 3 little pigs. The time had come for the 3 little pigs to leave home. "Watch out for the big bad wolf," warned the daddy pig as he waved goodbye. The 3 little pigs hadn't walked far when the first little pig grew tired.
"This will do,"
yawned the lazy little pig. He quickly built a house from straw that was laying nearby. It wasn't long before the second little pig stopped walking and looked around her.
"This will do,"
she said, and swiftly built a house from the sticks and branches that were scattered around her. The third little pig walked on and on and on. Finally, he found a pretty area of land by a stream. It was the perfect place to build his house. The third little pig decided to build a strong brick house to keep him safe from the wolf. He drew plans. He bought the best bricks he could find. And finally, after weeks of hard work, he stood back and admired his beautiful new home.
Wow.
Meanwhile, the hungry, big bad wolf came across the first little pig resting in his house of straw. Little pig, let me come in," said the wolf.
"Not by the hair on my chin,"
cried the first little pig. "Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down," howled the hungry wolf. So the big bad wolf huffed and he puffed, and the tiny straw house came tumbling down. The little pig ran as fast as he could until he arrived at the house made of sticks. The big bad wolf snuck up to the house. Little pigs, let me come in," he growled.
"Not by the hairs on our chin,"
cried the frightened little pigs. "Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down," howled the hungry wolf. So the big bad wolf huffed and he puffed, and the wobbly stick house came tumbling down. The two little pigs ran on and on and on until they finally reached the third little pig's house.
Don't worry, we are safe in a strong brick house,
said the third little pig as they heard a bang at the door. Little pigs, let me come in, said a familiar voice. It was the wolf.
Not by the hairs on our chinny chin chins,
cried the three little pigs. Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house down, howled the hungry wolf. So the big bad wolf huffed, and he puffed, and he puffed, and he huffed. But nothing happened. The house didn't even wobble. The wolf was furious and very hungry. He climbed up onto the roof and jumped down the chimney. Splash! Ow! The wolf landed in a pot of boiling hot soup and burned his long furry tail on the fire. He leapt out of the chimney and ran away as quickly as he could. As for the little pigs, they lived happily ever after in their house made of bricks. They never ever saw the big bad wolf again. The end.
please subscribe.
The website research.com talks about the benefits of digital storytelling. Digital stories provide students with the opportunity to digest information in a meaningful way. This is particularly important in an age where people are bombarded with stories and information. Digital stories allow teachers to genuinely engage students in the story's message. Digital stories can teach students the value of emotional rhetoric, allowing them to explore new ways of acting or thinking differently. These stories can elicit emotional responses in students and encourage them to pursue topics that they're passionate about, making it a great support for social-emotional learning. Students benefit not only from receiving information through digital stories, but also from making digital stories that feature their experiences and learnings. The many aspects of creating a digital story improve students' technical skills and hone research and writing skills as well. Research across the globe has shown improved understanding, research skills, and overall academic performance when digital storytelling is included in the process. So how do you go about creating a digital story? There are several ways to jump into digital storytelling, but I've outlined 6 steps to follow as a guide. First, you need a story, either found or originally created. The story needs to be recorded and images added to represent the words. Sound effects can support and elevate certain words or action in the story, and just the right music will give an emotion to the story that cannot be matched with text alone. The following example shows how music can completely change the viewer's perception of the same image. Think about what this dog is experiencing just based on the music you hear. And finally, you want to share your digital story to an audience. Following are 3 short examples of student-created digital stories. As you watch and listen, notice all the visual and audio components that they chose to achieve the overall effect they wanted to get across to their audience.
She is from warm cups of tea. From collecting sea glass and eating lobster. She is from the 2 red swings that hang from the back deck and the deep purple lilacs that grow in the garden. She is from big Thanksgiving dinners and always being stubborn. From There Goes the Easter Bunny and Don't Be Fresh. From Italian sandwiches and pasta and meatballs. She is from Mia La Familia and Always Stick Together.
I am from smooth, flowing ink out of ballpoint pens, paper mache, and pentel, and crisp printer paper, creamy under the working hand. I am from Arkansas summers, humid, blistering, and sticky. It tasted of sweat, faint and sweet wilting blossoms, fragrant grass, stains on denim, and the chicken house down the road. I am from the flower of a magnolia tree whose petals grace a cheek in the wind, the current of a river, wild and free and ever adventurous in its winding path. I am from the early present on Christmas Eve, beaming faces and the buzz of excitement. I'm from a long line of creators and artists, a pen passed down through the generations, from Alicia and Emily and Matthew. I'm from wringing of hair on fingertips and the nervous tap of feet, and the discreet glance in the mirror. I'm from the goodness of my soul and the talent in my pinky. I'm from science and logic, from the winking of stars in the sky, wistful eyes glimmering down on me. I am from the south's warm winds, proud Vikings and the thundering embrace of the sea, tender lamb and valiant boar sacrificing the glory of my ancestors. From the grotesque masks my aunt wore on weary October nights, the wise eyes of my grandmother, tender and cautious. In crates and boxes stashed in various corners, smiling faces wishing me well, beautiful scenery to go with handcrafted gifts and letters, a box of unopened stationery whispering thank you. I am from days frolicking in the heat, the stroke of a pen, a sweet whisper in the wind, and bittersweet tears on smiling faces.
All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them all. Each little flower that opens, each little bird that sings, He made their glowing colors, He made their tiny wings. The purple-headed mountain, the river running by, the sunset in the morning that brightens up the sky, the cold wind in the winter, the pleasant summer sun, the ripe fruits in the garden, He made them every one. He gave us eyes to see them, and lips that we might tell how great is God Almighty, who has made all things well.
For the next segment of this digital storytelling series, I'm going to walk through each of the 6 steps in detail with a variety of tools. Digital stories can be created using Apple apps like GarageBand and iMovie, or web-based apps like Canva, Soundtrap, and WeVideo. Regardless of the tools, the first step is to determine the story. Stories can be anything that students want to share. They can find stories or poems, articles, or something they've written themselves, or in this case, I gave AI a prompt to write me a story about the adventures of a cat and dog. To learn how to create digital stories on iPads, MacBooks, or Chromebooks and PCs, Follow the respective video link below to continue this series on digital storytelling. For additional resources on visual literacy and digital storytelling, visit the link to the presentation below. Thank you for watching this first video in the digital storytelling series. For contact hours, see the information in the video description, and if you would like support with digital storytelling in your classroom, please reach out to myself or one of the other MLTI ambassadors. Join me in the next video on how to create digital stories with your students.